then 5, I forgot to, I wanted to mention, if you didn't know, that this is the 5th year of the center. This is the 5-year anniversary of this center. It's amazing. I can't believe 5 years has gone like that. Big celebration. Yeah, 5 is a big deal. So how many of you were participating at the town hall before we were here? Yeah, so several. So I was. So this year for me is 20. I've been teaching 20 years. I know. Considering I'm only 30, I was really young when I started. Really young. But yeah, so we used to have classes at the Old Stone School in the cafeteria. Yuck. Yeah, but we did it, and here we are. Here we are. So I brought my skeleton today. Even though it was raining, I stuck her in a pillowcase. So this is, her name is Skelly. Yeah, not very inventive, but so part of the reason I brought her, because we were talking last week about the pelvis in particular, excuse me. And so what I wanted to mention, I was telling Carrie, I think, yep. So this is a female because the hips are a little wider. Can you all see her? Or how about if I put her up here? Oh, there we go. Can you all, you can't see her over there. Oh, there's water here. I don't know what that is. All right, let me just do this. Okay, you can all see now, right? Okay, so her hips are a little wider and a little farther away from her ribs. There's more space between the ribs and the hip. So if this was a male, the pelvis would be a little bit narrower and it would be closer to the rib cage. So the male pelvis is a little more oriented this way and the female pelvis is a little more oriented that way. It was by design, for sure. It was by design. So what we were talking about last week specifically is the hip, right? So people look at this whole thing and call it the hip. It is kind of, but this is the pelvis. I'm going to turn her around a little bit. So you can see one big bone there and one big bone there. Those are the elephant ears that I talk about a lot, right? Don't they kind of look like elephant ears, one on either side? And then you've got the spine that comes down where it's between these two pelvises. That is your sacrum. So that's the bottom part of your spine. So when we talk about the hip, though, and people who have hip pain or need a hip replacement, bursitis in the hip, it's here in this joint where this bone, this is your leg bone, this is your femur, where the leg bone goes into the hip. It's right there. That's the hip. They don't operate up here unless you've broken your pelvis, but they operate down here. And what they do generally is they'll take the top of this bone off. They'll put in a nice titanium or other kind of material in there, and then they'll line the inside of the joint with something to make it glide so that they'll have a nice smooth movement there. So just so you know, I think it's important because I think sometimes from here to here is kind of a black box, right? We're not really sure what's going on. So when somebody says, oh, you know, we're going to have this done or we're going to do that, it's sometimes good to just know what your anatomy, where it is, what's happening with it.
So hip replacement that I hear talked about like you just showed us?
Yes, yep, it would be this top right here, this little part here, and then where it goes into the pelvis, they put a little lining in there. So it's just like this, so that it'll glide in there. Yeah. Yeah, it is interesting, right? And that's why it can be so successful so quickly, right? It can just happen really quickly that you have pain, you go in, you have your surgery, and then you don't have any pain anymore. Well, that's a little more complicated. So no, they generally, with a knee replacement, so you've got, I don't know if you all can see this, so you've got the lower leg bones, you've got your tibia, that's the big one. That's the one you hit on the coffee table at night, right? That's the one. And then your fibula on the outside. And then you've got your femur on the top. And if you can see this little tiny bone there, that's your kneecap, right? So what they generally do with a knee replacement, a lot of times they'll go in and they'll resurface this part and that part. So the upper leg bone and the lower leg bone come together like that. Can you see that? They kind of come together like that. And the kneecap, poor Skelly, her kneecap doesn't float the way it should because they had to anchor it somehow, but the kneecap would be sliding up and down on that. So what they'll do is they'll move that kneecap out of the way and then they'll do some resurfacing in there. So they don't generally cut off a big part of the bone there. Good. Anything else? It depends. So it depends on the level of wear that's in there. Sometimes they'll put something in, like a new surface. Oftentimes they'll just go in and kind of clean things up a little bit. So it really depends on what it is. But they don't go in and just like take off here and take off there and stick in a new piece. It's just much more complicated here. The hip is actually a much less complicated structure to replace. The knee is just very complicated because you have literally like 3 bones kind of coming together, and then you've got all kinds of little, I'm going to call them insulating pockets. They're bursas, so that kind of cushion things. So it's a little more tricky. Ankles are very tricky too. Same thing. You've got on the ankle, it's a lot smaller now, so it'd be very hard for you guys to see in the back, but you've got your tibia that comes down here, and it sits on a big bone at the very top of your foot, and then you've got a bunch of little bones in the foot that we have to take into consideration. All right. What about the rotator cuff? What about the rotator cuff, right? So the rotator cuff is up here. So your shoulder, let's see. So you've got your humerus, that's your upper arm bone, right? Your humerus comes into the socket up here. And the rotator cuff, it's 4 muscles that control your shoulder and your arm that make these movements, right? So the rotator cuff are the tendons of those 4 muscles. They're in the back, they're on the top, they're underneath. But the tendons go right along the top of this bone. Can you all see that little space between this bone and that bone? So that Skelly has a big space there, so she would need surgery, I think, if she was going to do anything. But the tendons that cross the top of the humerus, they can get pinched or impinged or damaged by rubbing on this upper bone. So when they do a rotator cuff repair, they'll often go in and they might take tendon from another part, depending on the level of the tear. They might be able to repair that, and usually they'll just do like screws or something of that sort. It's very painful. Yes. It's a very complicated joint, so it does take a long time. Yep, it does take a very long time. So we have some experts in the group today. Yeah, wow. The psoas muscle. Yeah, I didn't know we were going to do anatomy all class. That's good. Okay, you didn't know we had one. We have 2. It's called the psoas muscle. Okay, so it's a really important muscle. It's the only muscle that could, well, there's 2 of them, so sorry, there's 2. One on the right side, one on the left side. It's the only muscle that connects your leg to your back. There's no other muscle that connects your leg directly to your back. Okay, everything else connects your leg to your hip or your hip to your back. This is the only one that does it. So the psoas muscle goes from the top of your leg bone, the top of your femur, and it goes up in the inside of the pelvis, so right in here, and it connects up into your low back. It also connects to, not just to the bones, but it connects to the discs in your low back. So a lot of times people who have pain, back pain, can get relief by working on the muscles here in the front. I think of the psoas muscles as your tickle muscles. So if you've ever been tickled, right? How many of you have been tickled? Everybody's been tickled, right? Yeah. That's okay then. So So those are the muscles that really contract when somebody's like tickling your belly. Those are the muscles that will really kind of contract, kind of to protect. So you're welcome. All right. Whew. That's a lot. I should have boned up a little bit more, you know? Oh, boned up. I didn't even get that. Okay. All right. Okay, so no exam. You guys get a pass today on that. But how about if we do a little breathing? So if you want to come right up to the front edge of your chair and have your feet right underneath your knees. And then find your sitting bones. So the sitting bones are at the bottom of the pelvis. I'll turn Skelly around so you can see. She's got two nice sitting bones right there. So we're just going to sit right on those sitting bones. And then get the shoulders right over the hips. So sometimes we're leaning forward or we're listing or tilting a little bit. So we just want to get those shoulders over the hips. And if it's comfortable, you can close your eyes. And just notice what's happening in your mind. So we just had like a nice little anatomy lesson here. So just kind of talking about different anatomy. Maybe it's stirring some things up. Maybe you're thinking about things in your body or thinking about things having to do with your anatomy. So just kind of notice your thoughts. And turn your awareness to your breath. So as you're having any of those anatomical thoughts, you can also focus on your breathing. So feel your breath moving in and out. Notice if it's fast or slow, if it's shallow or deep. And begin to slow your breathing down intentionally. So inhaling deeply and exhaling completely. And as you're breathing in and out, feel your rib cage expand and contract. Feel your belly expand and contract. You might feel your shoulders rising and falling. Let's take one more nice full deep breath in, let it out with a gentle sigh. Let your eyes gently open. Let's roll those shoulders forward, up, back, and down a couple of times, just noticing what you hear in there, what you feel in there. Maybe it's noisy. Maybe one side's noisy and the other side's not noisy. Great. And then relax your shoulders, and we're just going to turn the head in a no direction, right? So from side to side, a little no direction with the head. And just the head, not the shoulders. You're not twisting your body at all. You're just moving from your neck all the way up. And then come back to center with your head, and we'll do a little yes movement. So lifting the chin and lowering the chin. Breathing in, breathing out the whole time here. And it doesn't really matter when you inhale and exhale as long as the breath stays smooth and even. So that, in other words, there's no holding. So you're not holding your breath at any place. And then coming back to center here, we're going to take the right ear to the right shoulder. Breathe in, breathe out. And then go over to the left side. And again, hold here, breathe in, breathe out. And going back to the right side. So you're just bringing the ear to the shoulder, taking a breath in and out, a nice long, slow breath in and out, and then switching sides. So try and keep your nose facing forward so you're not turning your nose down or turning your nose up. It's a little more tricky, right? So a lot of times um, we reach a limitation on how far we can get the ear to the shoulder, and so we turn the head to try and get it a little closer. But see if you can avoid that. See if you can just go with what's in your range right now. And you might notice, so as I bring my right ear to my right shoulder, the left side of my neck and shoulder are a little sore and tight, or maybe it's the other side. And breathing in and out. The next time you come up, we're going to hold here for a moment. And then we're going to do a little bit of a diagonal movement. So you're going to turn your head down to the right. So you're looking down over that right shoulder. And then take your head and turn it up and to the left. So you're looking up above that left shoulder and then down into the right. So nice and slow. You don't want to go too fast here. And go to your end range. So go as far as you can without pain. So if you reach a point and there's some pain there, I want you to stay inside that feeling of pain, meaning don't go beyond that level of pain. You just want to operate in a pain-free range. So just notice, is this smooth? Is it easy? Or is it a little challenging? Is it noisy? Anything you notice about it, right? Is it easier to look down than up or up than down? And then at some point, we're just going to come back to that center position. So bring your head back to kind of center. Take a moment. Just notice right side, left side. And then we'll do the same thing on the other side. So meaning we're going to look down and over the left shoulder. And breathing in and out, we're going to look up and above the right shoulder. So way up toward the sky. So it's like looking down at the ground on the left and looking at the sky on the right. And try and move just your head. So you're not like, try not to lean your body or twist your body. This is just your head that's moving on your neck. Right? So your skull is moving on your cervical spine. The cervical spine is the neck. And notice, is this side easier? Is it more challenging? Is it noisier or less noisy? Is there discomfort here? And the next time you come through, we're going to come back to that center position. So again, just kind of taking a moment and noticing the shoulders, the neck, noticing your breath. And then let's bring the ears up to the shoulders up to the ears. And then we're just going to hold there and really squeeze. Squeeze as much as you can. Take a nice deep breath in, and then as you exhale, drop your shoulders all at once. Good. So we'll do that again. Just kind of squeeze, 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 squeeze. Keep breathing. Don't hold your breath. Keep breathing in and breathing out. Oh, get your shoulders a little closer to your ears. Imagine you could just like turtle your head here, right? So you just get your head right inside your rib cage. And then with your next exhale, you're just going to let it all go. And one more time. So bringing the shoulders up, up, squeeze, squeeze, squeeze a little bit more. Keep breathing, though. Don't hold your breath. The tendency sometimes is to come up here and hold your breath. So see if you can just keep breathing. And whenever you next exhale, you're just going to drop those shoulders really fast. So again, just taking a moment, noticing, pausing, feeling the shoulders, feeling the neck. Okay, and then we're going to squeeze the shoulders up, not quite as much as you did, but we're just going to hold them here. And now I'm going to ask you to really slowly lower them down. And lower them way down. It's like someone is pushing down on your shoulders, trying to push them down to the floor. And then breathing in and breathing out, we're going to come back up, and you can come back up a little more quickly. So give it a little squeeze at the top, and then really slowly lower down. Slowly lower down. Now you might notice as you're slowly lowering down that the movement is a little jerky or a little hesitant. Maybe it doesn't move as smoothly, right? So sometimes it's on that letting down that it's a little bit tricky. How about one more time? We'll just kind of squeeze the shoulders up to the ears and then slowly lower down. Good. Relax your shoulders here. Take a moment, notice the shoulders and the neck. Notice the chest and the upper back, maybe between your shoulder blades. And then we're going to take the right shoulder up to the ear and bring the left shoulder down toward the floor, but try not to twist your spine too much, right? So see if you can do this with just the shoulders, and then slowly switch. So we're bringing the left one up and the right one down. And just go back and forth. So we're just exploring what movement is possible here, right? So are you creating tension in your neck while you're doing this? Can you relax your neck and your jaw and let your shoulder top do the work, right? So you can continue like this, or you could drop your hands off your lap and try and reach for the floor on the downside, and then lift the whole arm on the upside. Breathing in, breathing out. Try not to tilt in your chair. So I see some folks tilting from side to side. So you want to keep both sitting bones on the chair. You want to keep your spine up nice and tall. We're just moving the shoulders around the spine. I don't think Skelly can do this because she's got bolts in there. No, I can't show you with that. Okay, so one more time on each side. Great. And then relax your shoulders. Let your hands come to your lap. Take a moment here. Just notice your shoulders. Notice your upper back. Notice your neck and your jaw. And then we're going to take the arms out to the sides. Bring them just about to shoulder height. Turn your palms up. And then come all the way up overhead. So we're going to make this little movement. Turn your palms away and come all the way down. Right? So come all the way down, breathe in, turn the palms out, come all the way up, breathe out as the arms come out and down. Now if you're working with a shoulder injury or a shoulder that doesn't go all the way up, just go as high as you can. So the shoulder, I think I've said this like 1,000 times in 20 years, the shoulder is the most mobile joint in your body, and it's the one, if you don't use your full range, you will lose it, because your body wants to conserve. So it says, oh, we never have to reach up overhead, so I'm just going to take that out of the repertoire here. We're just not going to do that. So this is a great movement to do in the morning or before you go to bed, just kind of to loosen things up a little bit. The next time your arms are up overhead, can you hold here for a moment? Reach up a little higher, sit a little taller, inhale and exhale. Whew, this is kind of hard. So with the arms up overhead, it's putting a little strain on the arm muscles, right? Everybody's so happy here. Bring your arms out to the sides. When you get to shoulder height, turn your palms down. Reach out through your fingers. Drop your hands a little lower than your shoulders, just a little bit lower than your shoulders. And reach out through your right fingers like you could touch the wall on that side, and reach out through your left fingers like you could touch the wall on the other side. Relax your jaw. Relax your neck. Relax your breathing. So just holding the arms out here, this can be really challenging, right? Yes, they're probably getting very heavy at this point, right? So let's see how slowly we can lower the arms down. Nice and slow. Slow, slow, slow. So you're maybe like halfway at this point. Really slowly. Keep breathing. Try not to hold your breath. Almost there. When your arms get down, just let them hang down by your sides. Relax your shoulders, relax your arms, relax all that tension you were just holding in your upper back and in your chest and in your jaw. Take a breath in, let it out with a sigh. Great. Let's take the hands now, and we're just going to do a little bit of movement with the hands. So we've worked those shoulders, worked the neck a little bit. So now we're just kind of getting the hands. So as you're squeezing, notice if you have a little discomfort in any of the joints in your fingers. So if you do have some joint discomfort, just don't squeeze those fingers quite as hard, and squeeze the other ones. When you extend, really extend. Like you could bring your little finger and your thumb like so far away from one another, and then squeezing and extending. And then we're going to do that middle ground. We haven't done this for a little while. So the middle ground is what I call a bear claw. It's like a bear claw. That's why I call it a bear claw. Yeah, so it's like you're trying to grip something with your fingernails, right? And then we'll extend, that's like a starfish, right? So the starfish is nice and wide. And then we'll go to a fist, okay? So a bear claw and a starfish and a fist. Bear claw, starfish, fist, and breathe. Bear claw, starfish, fist, bear claw, starfish, fist, bear claw, starfish. Let's hold fist and breathe. We'll go to a starfish now. We'll go all the way to a starfish, and then we'll go to a bear claw and a fist. And a starfish, bear claw, fist. So we're just doing the opposite of what we were doing, right? Breathe in, breathe out. If you get confused, if you're on a starfish and we're on a bear, that doesn't matter, right? So you'll get there. So this is just exercising all those little joints, right? So the bear claw exercises some of the more, the farther away joints, the more distal joints, right? The fist is engaging a little bit more of the forearm muscles. Good. All right, and then just kind of shake that out a little bit. Let's circle the wrists. Circling the wrists. And reverse direction. Good. All right, and then just a little bit of elbow work. So we're just going to extend the arms, bend and tap. Breathe in, breathe out. So we're getting some movement there in the elbows. Good. Excellent. Next time you tap your shoulders, we're going to lift the elbows higher, bring them out to the sides. So we've got the elbows going, the upper arm, is parallel to the floor. The elbow, right elbow is pointing at the right wall, left elbow is pointing at the left wall, and then we're going to extend and bend here. All right? So extend. And when you extend, fully extend, right? So go out as far as you can. Make it count. So you're really reaching, and you're feeling it through the muscles in the arm, right? Good. And you're breathing, aren't you? Yeah. Good. Okay, next time you extend, you're going to hold here. So drop those shoulders. I see a lot of shoulders way up here. Drop the shoulders down. We're going to use the thumbs as the steering mechanism, and we're going to turn the palms down, around, and turn them all the way up toward the ceiling. Got that? Okay, and then we're going to turn all the way the other way. So like it could go backwards. So we're just pivoting the whole arm forward and pivoting the whole arm back, and breathe in and breathe out. Doesn't matter when you inhale and exhale. Just keep it smooth. Keep it moving. Drop your arms a little bit lower. So I still see a lot of arms up a little higher than I would like. Good. So down a little bit lower. Good. Okay. How about two more? Can we get two more in here? I might be feeling a lot in the arms right now, right? Yeah. Because how often do you do this movement? Not very often. So that's about 4. Yep. All right. I did say something about 2. This isn't a math class though, so I'm not promising anything. All right, let's let that go. Whew. Let's roll those shoulders forward, up, back, and down a couple of times. All right, so we've had a lot of shoulder concentration. We're going to move down to the lower body a little bit, so we're going to start with the hips. So that the hips, we're going to start with the pelvis, right? So we're going to start in this area right here, right? And then down into the hips themselves. So let's begin by bringing the feet a little wider than the hips. So just about, I think for most of us, that's going to be about the width of the chair legs. So this is the point I want to make. So when we talk about hip width, it's the width of the bones, not the width of the flesh, right? So the bones are much narrower than we think. Our hips, because we have some tissue there, our hips are a little wider. When I put my hands out here, they're wider. But the bones are here. The bones are like much closer together. So when we come out, we don't want the feet really wide. We want to have them, for most of us, it's going to be between 12 and 18 inches. You don't want to go any more than that. And part of the reason for this is because we want to have the legs in the top of the legs in the correct, in the best position for moving forward and back. So if she has her legs way out like this, and she moves her legs up and down, or moves, she can't bend forward. She can if I take her off her stand. Let's see if I can do this. All right. So if she has her feet really wide, oh, that knee doesn't want to work. If she has her feet really wide and she starts to bend forward and back, this leg bone is at an angle in that hip socket, right? If she has her feet hip width, which is that, as opposed to this, when she bends forward and comes back, her leg is pivoting in that hip socket in a good way. It's using the, oh, I need my glasses. I can kind of see it. There we go. All right. Oop. So same thing for us, even though we're going to be moving the upper body toward the thighs as opposed to the thighs toward the upper body because we're sitting, it's the same thing. I don't want to have my feet way out here because now my legs are coming into my pelvis at an angle that might not be, or into my hip at an angle that might not be optimal. So I'm going to go about, like I say, about 12 to 18 inches here. Okay. So now, sitting right up close to the front of your chair, we're just going to hinge forward from the hips, just like Skelly just did, so her back was nice and flat, and then come back up. Right? So that's the movement. We're getting a little bit of juice in the joints. Got to juice up the joints. Okay, so coming forward and back, and breathing in and breathing out. Good. Okay, so the next time that you come forward, see if you can hold here. Good. And can you bring your elbows or forearms down onto your thighs? Can everybody get there? Okay, so if you can get here with your elbows down onto your thighs and breathe, and again, your feet are not so wide apart. You want to have your feet a little bit closer together here. So what you want to do is turn your head to the right and see if you can look up over your right shoulder. Breathe in, breathe out. And then bring your head slowly back to center and turn and look out over your left shoulder. And breathe in, breathe out. Let's keep going. So nice and slow, very slow. You can even twist your shoulder a little bit. So if you're not sure, actually, if you'd want to just kind of take a look up here, if you want, you can twist one shoulder forward a little and twist your back. Or you can simply turn your head. So these are movements. A lot of what we do in this class is about functional movement, right? So these are movements that we want to be able to maintain or regain if we've lost it, right? Because these are helpful. You got to turn around and look at something. Good. And then come back to center. Excellent. And then let's see if we can come all the way back up. Excellent. Let's take that right leg, extend it out. Have your heel on the floor. And let's do a little, yeah. When you're forward. Yeah, you're on, that's a really good question. So you're on your sitting bones sort of, but for a lot of us who are a little bit shorter, you're going to be on the thigh muscles, the back of the thigh muscles. That's a great question. Yeah, did anybody else notice that it felt like you weren't quite grounded in your sitting bones when you came forward? You kind of get on the muscles a little bit. And that's, if you were a little, if we were a little taller, it would be less obvious. Where was I? What were we doing? Oh, we're doing the foot. Yes. Okay. I'm so easily distracted. Okay. So we're just going to point and flex the foot. Get a little bit of movement in that ankle. So ankles can be noisy too, right? So a little snap, crackle, pop in the ankles. Anybody got that going on out there? Just me? All right. Oh, I heard you. I heard you. That was a good one. All right, let's circle around. This usually gets it. Oh, I hear a little music out there. And then reverse. Oh, yeah. All right, and then that foot comes down. We'll go right to the other side. So point and flex. That was a knee, I think. Yeah. I can differentiate knees versus ankles. Yeah. They have knees have a distinctive snap when they go. And then circle. Good. And breathe. Forgot about that. And reverse. All right, and then bring that foot to the floor. So let's go to the right foot again and have your heel on the floor. You can have a little bend in your knee if you want, so you don't have to have a super straight knee if you don't want. So what we're going to do with this foot is we're going to squeeze the toes. So I'm going to do it with my fist so you can see. So we're squeezing the toes, right? And then we're extending the toes. So it's like a fist and a starfish with the toes, right? So can you all do that? Fist and starfish with the toes? So I'll look, because I see some faces back there. So that's my starfish. It's not as good as my hand, for sure. And there's my fist, right? So breathing in, breathing out. All right. So now we're going to try a bear claw with the foot. Right? So it's not this, it's kind of this. Yeah? So I'll go sideways so you can see. So there's my fist, right, with my foot. Gotta shake it out a little bit. And then there's my bear claw. Oh, it's a little different, right? Can you all get that? That's a much finer motor skill in the toes, in the foot. It's just the toes, yeah. So what might be helpful is to do it with your right hand as well. So you can show your foot your hand and say, this is how we do it, okay? So let's try that starfish. So there you go, foot. That's what my starfish looks like. And then let's do the bear claw. And then we'll do the fist, right? Starfish, bear claw, fist. Got it? Good. Nobody's breathing. This is tough. Let's try that again. One more time. So starfish, bear claw, fist. Oh, tap that foot out a little bit. So did anybody feel like the foot was cramping a little? Yeah. So we're waking up some muscles in there, which is a really good thing. Let's go to the other side. So let's start just with the fist, right? So if you want to do it with your hand, you can do it with your hand. So we'll go right to the fist and the starfish and the fist and the starfish, right? So you got that. Most of us can do that because they're two extremes. It's that one in the middle that's really challenging. So let's see if we can get to that bear claw. So again, show your foot, your hand, and then see if you can get the whole thing. Right? Breathe in, breathe out. It is tricky. Good. How are we doing? The big toe works really good. I heard that. You feel it in the ankle. Sure. Yes, because the muscles of your foot go up into your lower leg so they can cross at the ankle. And did you feel that in the other ankle too, or not so much? Only on the bear claws. Yeah. 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 You can do it. Just not, you won't notice it as much. Right? So this is a great exercise. So let's kind of leave that one go now. So this is a great exercise for developing some of the muscles in the bottom of the feet, right? Super important if you do have, if you do have flat feet or fallen arches, this is something that can be very helpful for building some strength there. Likewise, if you have really high arches, so that's the other end of the spectrum. Same thing. You want to build some resilience in the muscles of the bottom of the feet. You don't want to have them too tight, and you don't want to have them too relaxed either. So to that end, let's do this. Let's bring the feet in a little bit closer to the body, have them close to one another, and we'll do a little Barbie foot here, right? So coming up and coming down, coming up and coming down, right? Yeah, and I hear more music out there, right? So we're getting different joints. We're getting at different joints. Now, if you've got a joint that's a little crabby when you do this, don't go up quite so high. So what we want to do with the Barbie foot, you want to have a little bit of extension here. You don't want to come up on your toes. You want to have a little extension there, right? So coming up, and then see if you can stay up on your Barbie foot. So really stay up on your Barbie foot. You might even slide your feet back a little bit. and back a little bit more, right? And press down into your toes and breathe. That's number one. Everything else is just optional. All right, and then let's bring those Barbie feet flat on the floor. We're going to take the right foot, bring it under your chair, and turn the top of your foot flat on the floor. You know, turn the top of your foot into the floor, not flat. So turn it there. And if you got a sock or a shoe under your chair, this would be helpful if you're barefoot. But I see most of you have your socks on, which is good. So pressing down into the top of the foot, getting a little stretch through the ankle, getting a little stretch through that lower leg, inhaling and exhaling. And then let's take that foot back to the floor, and we'll do the same thing on the other side. So taking that foot, so a little bit of a stretch there, right? Good. And the more you press down, the more you'll feel this. Let's go back to that first side, to the right side again. Breathing in, breathing out. And this time, notice if you press a little more into the big toe side of your foot, you're going to get a stretch through your tibia, which is this big bone right here, right? And then if you press a little more onto the little toe side of your foot, you're going to feel it more out in where this thinner bone is, your fibula. Your fibula. And for anybody who's ever sprained an ankle, that's where it happens, is right there, and you can probably feel it. That's another thing that has a long recovery, believe it or not, is a sprained ankle. It can take a long time. And then take your foot and bring it back. That's because your feet are so far away from your heart. And then we're going to take the left foot and bring it underneath. So the circulation's not as good just because it's so far away. And you're standing a lot. And you're sitting a lot, so your feet are down. And then press on the little toe side of your foot, so for that fibula, for the outer part of the leg. Breathing in, breathing out. Getting a little stretch there. Excellent. And then let's place that foot back down on the floor. Okay, so take a moment here. Notice your feet. Notice your toes. Notice your ankles. Maybe your lower legs. Breath in, let it out with a sigh. Good. And we'll do a little work for the knees. So we're going to work our way back up toward the hips. So starting with the right knee, we're just going to bend and extend. Nice and slow. A little bending and extending. And exaggerate the end of range. So when you extend your leg, really extend it, like press out through your heel, draw your toes toward your shins. And when you bend it, see if you can bring your heel like it could tap the bottom of your chair. So just kind of bending and extending, going at a pace that feels okay to you. Try not to use momentum. If this is hurting your back, if it's like, ooh, a little too much, I'm leaning on one sitting bone or the other, put your hands on the chair. That's okay. Hands give you a little support. Arms give you a little support. Belly muscles are strong. So if your belly is just kind of digesting breakfast, make it work a little bit. Kind of pull those muscles in. So just a couple more of these. So this is great exercise for knees that are a little cranky or crabby, or if you've had surgery or an injury, this is one of the first things they have you do. And then bend that knee and bring your foot to the floor. Good. And we'll go the other side. So bending and extending. And again, knees, I should say this about every joint has its music, right? Some joints are a little more, some joints are a little more reserved in their music. Yeah, the knee is not one of those. The knee likes to be heard. So oftentimes we'll hear the knee kind of popping, snapping, cracking. It's all good. Sometimes, you ever get that little crinkly sound in your knee? You all know what that is, the crinkly sound? That's called crepitus. It sounds horrible. It's meaningless. It's fine. It's just little crackles. That's all it is. It's just little crackles. So everybody has it over the age of 30, and that would be all of us, right? I'm barely over the age of 30, but you know, I'm there. All right, so we got a little bit of movement in the knees. So we started with hip movement, just kind of coming forward and back. We're going to do a little side-to-side movement. So I'll show you on Skelly. So here she is sitting down, right? So we're just going to go out and in. Can you see how her leg bone moves in the hip socket? That's really important work there. So we're going to do that same thing, and we do this all the time, but maybe it's helpful to have seen the skeleton. So scoot over to the right side of your chair. Okay, so you're just going to lift your foot up just enough that you kind of clear the floor, go out to the side, and come back and down. That's it. So just coming up, out to the side, back and down. Now, when your foot comes back down, hold here for a moment. I want you to orient yourself on your sitting bones. So I see a lot of folks starting to list. So we're going to stay seated nice and upright. Use your left hand on the chair to keep yourself in integrity, right? So if you kind of straighten your arm, that'll prevent you from leaning into that side. So we're just lifting, going out to the side, coming back and placing it down. Breathe in, breathe out. Use your belly for support. So the belly is nice and strong as you lift that leg up, as you bring it out to the side. If you let the corners of your mouth turn up a little bit, that helps with the lift as well. It does, right? Everything lifts. Good. How about just one more time, lifting, going out, coming back, and down. Excellent. Let's just travel all the way over to the other side of the chair. Same thing, you got both sitting bones nice and firm. Take that right hand on the side of the chair, extend the elbow so that it keeps you in integrity. We're just going to lift that up, go out, come back, and down. Right? So try not to lean. Now, if you've got pain in your hip, if you've got some limitation in your ability to come out to the side, just do the best you can. Maybe you don't lift. Maybe just slide the leg out and slide it back, and that's okay too. Right? So you just want to work with whatever you've got there. And quite often, the difference between the right side and the left side is noticeable when we isolate like this. It's when your daily living, you might not notice it, but when you isolate like this, you might go, oh, something's wrong with that hip because it doesn't do that. Well, but maybe it's been like that since you were a little kid. Maybe this is just how your body is. How about one more time, up and back. Good. And then scoot back to the center of your chair. Take a moment here and just kind of notice your hips. Notice where your leg bones come up into your pelvis, into the hip sockets. Okay. And then last week, I think we were doing a little bit of work with the pelvis itself, right? Kind of moving the body in a way to access the pelvis. So where you're you want to have one hand on the top of your right pelvis and one hand on the top of your left pelvis. Can she do that? She can. Just like that, right? So there she is. She looks like a model when she's doing that. So you get your hands right on top of those bones, right? So it's right, you actually want to come into the front a little bit. So again, your pelvis, the bones are affixed with. It's not the flesh around the bones, it's the bones themselves. So from here, we're just going to kind of press down. And as you press down, I want you to imagine lifting your rib cage up a little bit. And then relax that. So this is a very small movement. So it's not this, it's not arching your back or anything. It's taking, it's as if, oh, she's still holding, that's cool. So it's as if you could take your rib cage and lift it straight up, right? Straight up and away from the pelvis. Just creates a little more space in through the waist and the sides of the body. Now with your hands, you can push down on the tops of those pelvic bones. So can you feel that? It might be a little tough to get, right? Might be a little tough to get. So what I would suggest is when you're pressing down on your pelvic bones and you're lifting your rib cage up, breathe in at that time. And then relax everything and breathe out. So we'll do this just a couple more times. So press down, lift up and breathe in. Relax and breathe out. How about just one more time? Press down, lift up, breathe in. And then relax. Good. Release your hands. Excellent. So now we just have more awareness. So you might even close your eyes. Just notice a little more awareness around the pelvic bones, around the pelvis. Okay. So next, we're going to just raise one side of the pelvis toward the rib cage and let the other side stay where it is, right? So let's shift the weight a little bit more onto the left sitting bone and see if you can raise your right pelvis up toward your ribs. Don't take your foot off the floor. Don't lift your butt completely off the chair. You're just creating a little more weight in that left sitting bone, and you're lifting just a little bit on the right and then down. On the other side, same thing. So you're lifting, you're shifting into the right sitting bone a little bit. You're lifting through that left sitting bone and then lowering down. So just go back and forth a couple of times, nice and slow. Try not to lean your whole body, right? So I see a lot of people rocking. So see if you can keep your body upright and make that movement just here. It's a very small movement, you guys. Very small. So it's as if, how do I want to say this? So you can feel the weight of your butt cheek in the chair, right? And it's just a lift of the bone. So it's like a little less pressure through that butt cheek when you're lifting. And then on the opposite side, it's a little more pressure. Got that? Yeah, very subtle. So what we're doing is we're creating a little bit of movement. And you can take a break if you want, especially if you haven't done this for a bit or ever. It can be a little tough. So what we're doing is, remember I was talking about the sacrum? That's this part of the spine here that sits between the two hip bones, between the two pelvic bones. What we're doing is we're starting to create a little bit of movement in there, which is what we want, right? So we need to have, there's a joint line here between this pelvic bone and the sacrum and this pelvic bone and the sacrum. And if that joint line gets really locked up, we can have back pain. Or we start to walk like this. See, no movement in the hips, right? Just kind of, my legs are just kind of walking. When I walk, I want to have some movement in my hips. I want to have this hip rise and the other hip fall. So I can't do that unless I'm able to shift that weight appropriately from side to side. And it's just a very subtle shift. Okay. Now we're going to slide a little bit forward and a little bit back, right? So again, sitting forward, we're not twisting, not going to twist the body at all. Feel your sitting bones, so make sure you can feel your sitting bones. Have your feet about hip distance, so a little bit closer. And then we're going to shift the right sitting bone forward and the left sitting bone back. Another way to look at this is see if you can take your left knee back a little and your right knee forward a little. Your feet don't move. It's just your knee. Got that? Yeah, that might be a better sort of landmark to look at. But as you're moving one knee forward and one knee back, and we're just going from side to side, it's like this little gliding movement that you can feel on your between your sitting bone and the flesh of your buttocks, right? Yeah. So that's another piece of movement, right? So when I'm walking, I need to be able to do this. So in, seems like 1,000 years ago now, I used to teach a mat class, a yoga class at my studio. And one of the things we would do from time to time is sit on the mat and try and walk with on our butts from the front of the mat to the back of the mat. That's a lot harder than it looks at first. But you have to be able to get that movement, that differential movement between your sacrum, right, between your sacrum and your pelvis. You need to have that differential movement in order to create that. Whoops. It's in my eye. All right, so one more time, forward and back. Great. And then just kind of sitting there on those sitting bones for a moment. Just notice. Let's do a little forward and backward bending again. So just a little forward bend, and then come back until you feel like your feet are going to come off the floor. Good. Breathe in, breathe out. So you want to breathe out on the hard part, which for me is the lean back. So I like to breathe out on the lean back. Breathe in on the lean forward. Good. How about one more time, forward and back? This is like a chair sit-up, right? How about, was that one? Let's do one for good luck. Okay. Excellent. All right. So let your feet come a little closer together and let your hands rest on your knees. Close your eyes. And notice your right foot where it's in contact with the floor. And as you notice your right foot where it's touching the floor, and notice the bottoms of your toes. Maybe all of your toes don't touch the floor. Maybe you've got a toe or a couple of toes that cross over one another. So whichever toes can touch the floor on the bottom of the toes, just kind of notice that and press down a little bit more into the bottoms of those toes. So not a whole lot. We're not making a bear claw. We're not making a fist with the foot. We're just kind of pressing down a little bit. And then as you're pressing down into the bottom of the toes, press into your heel at the same time, and specifically the outside edge of your heel. So again, if you have your eyes closed, it's a little easier to kind of get in touch with what you're doing with your foot because there's really nothing to see up here. So you're pressing into the bottoms of your toes, you're pressing into the outside edge of your heel. And as you're doing that, you might notice that your leg muscles are involved, right? So the leg muscles are starting to work. So if you press a little bit more into the bottoms of the toes and into the outside edge of the heel, see if you can feel the leg muscles even more. Feel it come up the lower leg into the thigh, maybe up into the back of the thigh, maybe even into the glutes a little bit. And you might feel like your right sitting bone is starting to lift a little bit off the chair. I'm going to ask you to make sure you keep that sitting bone on the chair so you don't want to tilt. And see if you can press your sitting bone into the chair at the same time that you're pressing the bottom of your right toes and the outside edge of your right heel into the floor. So you should feel that whole right side from your toes right up to your hip all energized here. Breathe in, breathe out. And then relax all of that. Just relax everything there. Take a breath or two and notice. Notice what it was like to activate everything and then to let everything go. So going to that left side now, you might want to spread your toes out a little bit. And then see if you can press down into the bottoms of your toes. And again, if you have toes that cross over, you've got one that is like above another one, don't worry about it. You're just pressing the best you can into the bottoms of the toes. And then press into the outside edge of your left heel. So a little more into the outside edge of your left heel and the bottoms of your left toes. And notice as you press that your leg muscles are involved. You might feel it in the lower leg. You might feel it in the upper leg, maybe into the back of the thigh, maybe into the buttocks. Press down even more. So really press down firmly and feel the top of that thigh activate. So it's really strong here. And once again, you might start to feel that left sitting bone lifting off the chair. I'm going to ask you to press that sitting bone into the chair. So you're pressing the sitting bone into the chair, pressing the outside edge of the heel into the chair, pressing the bottoms of the toes into the floor. Breathing in, breathing out. Press, press, press. And then relax all of that. And once again, just sort of notice. Notice what it was like to really actively engage those muscles and now to really actively let them go. Notice if there's a different quality to the contact between your feet and the floor. A different awareness of how you're sitting in your chair. And all the parts in between your foot and your pelvis. And start to deepen your breathing. As you deepen your breathing, you might envision the breath moving all the way down through the bottom of your rib cage, into your belly and into your pelvis. Breathing in and breathing out. And notice your thoughts right now. Notice if you have a lot of thoughts or if you have just one or two. Notice if the thoughts are different now than they were when we first closed our eyes after our little anatomy talk. And notice if you have any new awareness of your body, maybe your joints or your bones, how things are oriented, how they move, and how they don't move. That's important too. And take your hands up to the center of your chest. Let them rest on your chest. Take a nice deep breath in, let it out with a sigh. And then just a moment in gratitude to yourself, to your body, for all it can do. And then if you'd like, maybe opening your eyes and just expressing a little gratitude to all these wonderful folks in the room today. Yeah. Great. Enjoy the rest of your day. For those seeing the Barbie movie, have a ball. I'll see y'all next week.